Well, hello, and welcome to the Mediocre Arknights Operator Guide featuring Ashlock, the ballistic beaming beefy bomber beating big beasts briefly. Basically, a cool operator or something. Ashlock's subclass is the Fortress Defender, the first one introduced to the game when Fartooth was released. What's special about the subclass is this interesting attack range which allows the defender to fire area of effect projectiles at the further range, and swaps to a single target attack when they are blocking enemies. So when the operator is blocking, they thrust, and when they're not blocking, they shoot, and when enemies come, they'll be too close to be in the attack range so nothing happens. Bombardment Strategies is Ashlock's talent, and it quite simply increases attack slightly by default. No requirements needed, but she does gain extra attack if the 4 adjacent tiles are ground tiles. Side note, holes do count as ground tiles as well. I wouldn't necessarily go out of my way to find the spot with the 4 ground tiles, but it's nice if you happen to. Grey Nutty Skill 1, Attack Up Gamma buffs the attack stat by up to double for 30 seconds. Not much to say about this skill unless you're that hard pressed for higher physical attack, which at that point you could probably invest those resources elsewhere instead of M3ing the skill, because at skill level 7 it's only a 60% attack buff. That might be an alright attack buff, but it's likely overshadowed by Ashlock's skill 2, Focused Bombardment, which at the cost of not being able to block during the 10-second skill duration, her attack speed increases tremendously along with a medium-ish attack buff. And no, even when not blocking, Ashlock is unable to hit enemies passing through her melee range. The first thing to mention is that low SP cost. The skill and charge time is quite short, so the skill will likely be ready to use again by the time you think about it. If you are going to use Ashlock often, I highly recommend maxing out the skill at M3. The attack speed difference is quite noticeable. The difference is on screen, and yes, it does have to be M3 for any further increase in attack speed after skill level 7. It's also a fun skill to watch as Ashlock explosively unloads on her foes. Basic tips with Ashlock. This operator is probably not the most ideal for blocking enemy units because of the whole skill 2 thing, but there are ways to get around that as long as you are smart about it. If you want to simply not use her as a blocker, use her as artillery in the back and have her fire away. In the case of more infrequent enemies, you may be able to alternate between a blocking and firing role without leaking enemies through. Activate the short skill as they're approaching and let the skill recharge as the rest of your squad mops up the rest of them while Ashlock blocks. You can even try plopping some sort of melee unit behind Ashlock, ideally ones with an attack range larger than the one in front, such as Lapland or Blaze Skill 2. Here's a different thing you can do. With the defender's naturally higher defense, they are able to be buffed by Axe Skill 3 without running out of health and without much setup.
We have to cook Ashlock.
But Mr. Ack, we can handle it without your product.
Ashlock, we just have to. Think of the publicity, the sales of our product.
I mean, listening back to this, I quite honestly sound like I'm on some sort of product. So, should you build Ashlock? If you value damage output, yes, not a massive output, but it's pretty solid. If you value flexible positioning, no, some maps make it incredibly awkward to deploy Ashlock effectively. If you value a long-range melee unit, yes, being able to hit specific concentrated areas that your usual operators cannot opens up many options and can sometimes cheese maps. Finally, here are Ashlock's stats, potentials, trust bonus, base skills, and my E264 M3 Ashlock, ready to thruster, cannon, and shoot projectiles at unsuspecting victims. And that was the Ashlock Operator Guide. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.